Good evening, everyone. It is me, James the Man's Man, and here I am again in the Man's Bar whether it's after a long, hard day in the office, which I don't do, or it's 14 hours on your feet working for the man, which maybe you do. I used to do it. I kind of still do it at the restaurant. You might want to go home and have yourself a nice, refreshing whiskey. And tonight, I wanted to talk to you all about Woodford Reserve. But I don't got enough in here to do anything. So we're going to talk about something else right after this. And we're back. Before I get too far into this review, why don't I remind you that if you like this video, please hit the like button below. If you like my channel and you haven't already done so, hit subscribe. And there's a little balloon off to the side. If you click that, YouTube will send you notifications through the YouTube app on your phone that I've uploaded new videos for you to watch. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to get exclusive pictures and information on when I'm uploading new videos. Now, tonight we're here to talk about a bourbon. And like I already mentioned, we're not going to be doing Woodford Reserve because the bottle's almost empty. So tonight we're going to do Maker's Mark, which is a pretty good bourbon too. Not as good as the Woodford Reserve in my opinion, but we'll get to that in a couple weeks and I'll tell you why then. But for right now, we're going to do Maker's Mark. And we look at the bottle. It's sealed with wax. You have to, but it's a twist off. It's not a cork, it's a twist off with the wax. So I guess that's supposed to show you that it's tamper proof, but in today's day and age, I'm not really worried about somebody tampering with it. When you think about all the modern packaging and factory distillery and stuff, it's kind of more of a nostalgia thing. I like it. I do like it though, don't get me wrong. So this is made in Loretto, Kentucky, USA. And the distillery where it's made at on December 6th of 1980 actually became a U.S. National Historical Landmark, and it was actually the first operating distillery to receive that designation. So, with that said, we're going to open this up and we're going to try it 3 different ways, just like we did with the Canadian Club last week. I got my glasses here, I got my ice ball, and we're going to pour ourselves roughly about a shot worth now. We're going to swirl it around, sniff it, taste it. I'll tell you what I think. We'll set it off to the side and let it open up while I try it also with delicious Coca-Cola. I happen to love my pop. And we'll also try it as a cocktail. We'll also do a Manhattan tonight, so we can compare a rye Manhattan last week to a bourbon Manhattan this week. Now, we're going to give it a swirl around just like last week, where we talked about the legs of wine. Now we're talking about the legs of the whiskey. And this one comes in at 45% alcohol. And according to the Whiskey Barrel, this is the lowest proof of all of the Kentucky bourbons. And we'll notice that the Woodford Reserve just edges it out at 45.2%. Alcohol by volume, that's the standard we go through here in Canada. We don't call it by the proof. So this to me is 45% alcohol. To you that would make it a 90 proof. Again, I'm not going to lie to you like I didn't last week. I went online, I checked the tasting notes, and they're supposed to get some spiced honey, some fruit peel. Just like the winter spice. What does fruit peel mean? If banana has a fruit, banana's a fruit, it has a peel. I don't smell banana peels, I don't smell apple peels, I don't smell citrus. Like, what does fruit peel mean? That's one of those vague terminology, some of the vague jargon that they're trying to do just to make themselves appear that they know what they're talking about when they taste this stuff. See, I put my nose so far in there, I got it on my lip, and there is a little bit of fruit there, a little bit of vanilla too. You can smell some vanilla, but I wouldn't go out on a limb and say fruit peel. A lot of vanilla. You get a lot of vanilla, and that was one of the things the tasting notes warned me of. Well, it didn't warn me, but let me in on is that there's a butterscotch vanilla flavor going on in here. And I get that. I totally get what they're saying. I don't feel like I'm being BS'd as much as I was with the Canadian Club. Whoever wrote those, I don't know if they're getting paid by Canadian Club or not, but and I'm not trying to bash Canadian Club. Last week I did give it some favorable reviews in the mixed category, and I didn't give it a good review on the standalone category. This, however, I'm getting... This is a... I'm going to go back for a second one. It's not overly complex. It's not making me work for it. I don't have to hold my mouth and concentrate and try and figure out every flavor that I'm getting. I'm pretty much getting the butterscotchy vanilla kind of bit. The tasting notes were a little vague because they listed barley and malt and rye as tastes that you're going to get. And I was like, wow, you're listing the ingredients. That would be like opening up a wine and hearing it say, this is going to taste like grapes. So it was vague. I think they were trying to find, to stretch it out, to make it look not as simple as it is. Butterscotch and vanilla. And I don't think there's a problem leaving it simple. You don't always need 100 different flavors. You don't need to have, deep, dark, rich flavors all the time. I mean, we're drinking a bourbon, we're not drinking a scotch, so I'm not looking for heavy smoke, I'm not looking for peat. This is very well rounded. It went down smooth, and when I say smooth, I mean it didn't leave a burn. It went down. Like, I can sit here, I can sip these. I can sip this all night if I wanted to. And not being overly complex is not a bad thing. It's simple. You walk in from the door, from the outside world. You walk into your palace, your kingdom. There's problems out there. You come in, you pour yourself a Maker's Mark, and before you know it, your problems, they're off your shoulders. You're sitting down on the couch, you have your feet up, you got a glass of this, children playing at your feet, and your wife's cooking you dinner. Not because she has to, because she wants to. It's not her job. Unless, that's how it works. Now, second off, we're going to try this as a rye, or as a whiskey and Coke. I'm going to pour in some Maker's Mark. Crack open that can of Coca-Cola. And like I said before, you want a 3-to-1 ratio of pop to whiskey. You can give this a smell. Something... Okay, this is weird because I'm smelling orange. I don't know if it's the way that the Maker's Mark is interacting with the acid in the pop, but I feel like I'm smelling orange pith, and pith is the white part in between the zest and the actual flesh of the fruit. I'm getting a good strong smell of orange pith, which that's actually really surprising. Other than the warmth from the alcohol content, I'm not really picking much up. It's not as in your face as, say, the Canadian Club was last week. It's more mellow. It's definitely, again, if you do not like to drink whiskey on the rocks, maybe it's not your thing. You need a little pop in it, and that's fine. Whiskey is right the way you like it, and this is good. I mean, maybe you need a pick-me-up. Maybe you come home and you're exhausted, but you want a little beverage. Alright guys, I know I was just talking about drinking a Maker's Mark and Coke, but I did this entire review the way I wanted to. I got off my chair, I went around to turn the camera off, and it was off. It literally just died, and I sat here and I did the whole thing to a off camera like a stooge. When I turned it back on, the battery still had 13% power. So I was finishing up the the Maker's Mark and Coke, and I was basically telling you that it's good, it's not bad, but the problem with it is, at least in my market, Maker's Mark is at least $7.50 to $9 per drink. So if you're going to go to a restaurant or a bar or club, it is not the beverage that you want to order as a whiskey and Coke. You're better off getting it on the rocks or getting it into a more complex cocktail that'll allow you to enjoy it better. But if you're going to water it down with pop, I wouldn't buy this at a bar. If this is how you like to drink it at home, though, go for it. I just find it a little too expensive to order it out in public. Now the last way we're going to make it is as a Manhattan. Half my ice ball is gone, but I already drank half of it anyways, so I can tell you, I'm just going to grab a sip here to refresh my memory. Yeah, that's what I remember. Remember when I said that the Maker's Mark on the rocks wasn't very complex? It shows more so in the Manhattan, because what happens is that the bitters take a good punch right at the nose. You know that they're there, and you know they're up front. The bitters are driving this version of a Manhattan. And then you have the vermouth and the bourbon, in this case the Maker's Mark. They're taking a back seat, and it's a little more vermouth than it is whiskey in that back. Now, it's easy to drink. You can probably pound those back if you wanted to. And if you enjoy the sweet vermouth, then it's definitely a good option to use as a cocktail, the Maker's Mark that is. Because, like I mentioned, it does have a lack of complexity in my opinion, which leads it more towards allowing the flavors of the cocktail components to come out and shine more. So instead of it being overpowering and overbearing and just punching through, it's letting the vermouth come out. It's letting the vermouth be more open, and it's letting us taste what it's got to offer. I actually enjoy that just as much as I do the Canadian Club from last week. And like I said, the Canadian Club in a Manhattan is like an old girlfriend to me. It's something I'm always going to run back to. But this is damn good too. So that leaves us coming back to the Maker's Mark on the rocks, which has now been sitting here for about 25-30 minutes, opening up. Now, I told you already that didn't get recorded, how it had opened up and I was getting more, but now it's really open. It can't be more open than this. And it's difficult to say because now it's getting watered down more. So from memory, when I had this about 15 minutes ago, on the nose, I was getting a lot of the butterscotch vanilla. And when I sip it there, I'm getting a lot of the butterscotch. And now that the ice is half melted, I'm getting less of a burn. It's a little watered down. And not that there was a lot of burn to begin with, it was pretty smooth. But now it's starting to get watery. And that's the ice's fault. That's my fault. I guess I could have took the ice out since I knew I was going to be sitting here. I let the camera charge up a bit before I came back. But definitely, after it opens up, you get a lot more of the butterscotch notes and vanilla. So that finishes up the tasting, and that's going to bring us into the scorecard. Okay, so we have our scorecard up, and you can see that on the rocks I gave Maker's Mark a 7.5 out of 10. I did that because I felt it to be quite smooth and uncomplicated. It's a drink that you can just sit down and enjoy without having to think about it. You don't have to dissect every little bit of its flavor. In comparison, you can see that it beat the Canadian Club by 3.5 points. Moving it to a pop mixer, you can see that I gave it a 5.5 out of 10, and mainly that's because of the price associated with it. If you're buying it outside of the home, if you're going to get it at a restaurant or a bar, I feel that it's too expensive to use as a pop mixer. It's not a good value for your money, so I'm only scoring it at a 5.5 out of 10. But like I said before, if that's how you want to drink it at home, there's no wrong way to drink whiskey if that's the way you like it. And then as a cocktail, I gave it a 7 out of 10 for the Manhattan. I did that because, again, due to the uncomplex nature of it, it allows the vermouth and the bitters to take the forefront, and it kind of takes an equal partnership with the vermouth and gives you a nice taste. It's not overall too hard. So overall, I gave it a 6.67 out of 10, and so from the overall score, it barely beats Canadian Club, and I kind of thought this was going to happen because although it beats Canadian Club, both of these are bottom offerings in the brand. For example, Canadian Club has a 10-year reserve, and I'm not entirely sure what Maker's Mark calls their next level up, but there is a next level up, and since our score is capped at 10 out of 10, there needs to be room for similar products inside of the product lines for the reserve quality whiskeys inside of a certain product line to have room for advancement. So that's why I scored it the way I scored it. I hope you liked this video. Next week we're going to be doing a Scotch, and hopefully the week after that we can do an Irish whiskey. Then I will have given you basically one of each, a rye, a bourbon, a Scotch, and a Irish whiskey. And then after that, I'm going to move it around. Doesn't matter, I'm not going to continue the same order. I'm not going to repeat with a rye and then a bourbon and a Scotch and an Irish whiskey. I'm just going to dance around the whiskeys that I have. I may change the cocktail up. I might not always do a Manhattan, but I want to keep it something similar to that so it's a good benchmark for the flavor. If you enjoyed this video, give the video a thumbs up. If you enjoyed the channel, subscribe to my channel. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook so that way you can get notifications when I post new content. Thanks, and have yourself a great evening.